Hey guys, All in Crypto here, and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, for another YouTube video. Hopefully you've all had a smashing Sunday and a great weekend so far. This is going to be our daily cryptocurrency market update, and we've got quite a lot to get through in this video. You know, Bitcoin is at some pretty key levels, just hovering above the 2017 high. Historically, on a lot of metrics like the RSI, the long-term regression bands, and of course the 200 weekly moving average, Bitcoin is technically very oversold and at what historically would probably be a bottom. You know, if you were looking for an entry, you would perhaps call this a good one. However, and this is something that we've stressed time and time again, this is not you can't reference any other point in Bitcoin's history. Bitcoin came out in 2008 to today. And the reason being is because if you look at markets since 2008, they've just essentially gone up and to the right. You know, this is the NASDAQ. You can look at the S&P. You can look at a basket of other stocks and cryptos. And essentially, just since 2008, they've just essentially gone up. This is now a very different environment where historical metrics like the RSI, which can stay oversold for an extended period of time, no longer really count. And when I ask myself the question, do I want to be buying here? Absolutely not, because there's a lot more risk to the downside than there is to the upside. Where does that upside come from? That being said, we have spoken about how you will, in a downtrend, and this is very much a downtrend, we need to see volume confirm some sort of a shift, and we'll see big players get back into this market through volume. So subscribe to this channel if you're not already, because we'll try and keep you as up to date on it as possible and try and get as close to the bottom as we possibly can. We're never going to get the bottom perfectly, but certainly right now, this is not bottoming territory to me whatsoever. And we will dive down the time frames, look at the volume, certainly on the hourly or daily, because it's extremely weak, this pushback. There's no volume behind it, which, you know, fills me with cause for concern. We have been continuously stating the fact that you will interact with your 200 weekly moving average. We've seen that in the form of a relief rally, really, for the stock market. The issue is that all the pressures that we have, you know, in regards to the economy are very negative, and we'll talk about that towards the end of the video. Like, there could be a tidal wave of evictions. You know, this is something that I watch. I talk to people day to day when I'm at the gym, when I'm out and about. You know, last night I went out for dinner. We were talking to lots of people, and essentially, you know, one feeling that I get is, you know, things are getting, you know, very tight financially for a lot of people. But I want to kick things off now that we've sort of looked at Bitcoin, and we will drop down to the smaller timeframes once we've got through the news. But I want to kick things off with a tweet from Michael Burry. For those of you that don't know who Michael Burry is, he was the famous big short guy. He called BS on the housing market. He realized that it was junk on top of junk, and essentially was wrong for a period of time, had lots of people laughing at him, and then all of a sudden subsequently became very, very right, and actually, you know, called the housing bubble and the 2008 financial crisis. This is a tweet that he put out yesterday. I don't think this is going to be over until everybody swears they will never own an NFT, they will never own crypto, and they will never own a technology stock. And then he's referring to somebody here. Apathy was the sign in 2002 and 1932 and the 1974. Panic in 09, but 07, not a speculative peak in the stock market. So what Michael Burry is essentially saying here, and there is the possibility of it, is that essentially, you know, crypto, the NASDAQ, is going to do a similar thing to what it did back in the dot-com boom. And that could be a possibility. Certainly you know, if you look at certain tech stocks, they're already doing this. But certainly if you weigh up, it's my belief that we're going to enter a period of downturn. You know, we don't have monetary policy supporting the stock market or really the financial markets. And this is going to lead to further downturn. And there's so many catalysts that could cause some sort of severe downturn. And how does that relate to the cryptocurrency market? Well, given the correlation that we've seen, crypto is very much going to go with it. And this is a real risk. I don't necessarily think that, you know, for me, my targets for Bitcoin, 15K, potentially 12K. The lower, the thing for me is I'm in a very tricky situation, because the lower we go in terms of the cryptocurrency market, you guys know that we're majority in USDC at the moment. the better it is for me as a buyer. But if we look at the volume, what have we got up here? If we look at the volume on this move, it's very, very weak, and you can see very much a declining or a descending volume with an inclining price. That's a huge divergence that doesn't fill me with confidence. You've got this trend line here. Is this a potential falling wedge? Ultimately, I'm not a buyer here at these prices. I want to get Bitcoin and altcoins cheaper, and that's the kind of course that I'm very much set on. Even though there is still the room for more upside, if we look at the euros, dollars, and a number of other things, we take a quick look at the bond market, which doesn't really seem to be slowing down that much, but certainly the likes of nat gas and oil have come off significantly. But do they keep climbing? There's so much risk on the table. Russia talking about maybe defaulting. All of these things affect our system. Morgan Creek is trying to counter FTX's BlockFi bailout. Very much seems, and I don't know if I'm the only one that sees this, like at the moment, crypto is very much being commandeered by the traditional financial sector. The kind of institutions seem to be really, tightening their grip on the cryptocurrency market because they ultimately want to be the beneficiary of this industry when it does recover, and it will recover. Crypto isn't going anywhere. Just look at all the institutional involvement that we've got. The biggest asset managers in the world, everybody is wanting a piece of this action, and crypto will recover and do absolutely splendidly. Just at the moment, though, we've got a lot of macro conditions to sort of contend with. Elon Musk feels super bad about the economy, needs to cut 10% of Tesla's jobs. All these big companies cutting jobs are doing this because they know what comes down the road, and we're only getting into it now. The IMF, which is the International Money Fund, slashes US growth forecast, but claims recession will be narrowly avoided. Biden talking about recession not being on the cards. It very much is on the cards. It's not inevitable. Nothing is inevitable, but it's likely that we do enter a recession. And this is the thing that you've got to think, relating it to Bitcoin. Well, how does Bitcoin fare in a recession? Well, we don't know. Came out in 2008, was really birthed out of the financial crisis. Go and look at Satoshi's white paper. It included I think, from the Telegraph or the Times or something, talking about the bank's second lot of bailouts. But markets, again, certainly crypto, has basically just been born in, flourishing markets. 2008 markets have only just really gone up. We've never had a sustained period of downturn financially in the form of a recession for Bitcoin to contend with. Which is why, again, historical metrics really don't mean a great deal to me right now, because history is literally being made. It's going to be, I'm very excited to see how Bitcoin acts throughout this in crypto. This is another article that I found very, very interesting. This is prepare for a tidal wave of evictions. A tidal wave of evictions could be ahead. More than 8 million Americans are behind on rent payments, and the CDC's series of eviction has long since expired. In other words, the government's safety net to keep people off the streets. With no federal eviction in place, 8.4 million Americans, or about 15% of all renters who are behind on rent, are at risk of being evicted. The new figures were part of a Consensus Bureau survey conducted between June the 1st and June the 13th of households, and was reported first by Bloomberg. So this is something that I see coming. I also see for people that don't have fixed mortgages, that are on the breadline already, have been pushed to the breadline with the likes of oil going up, petrol, food, etc., just general bills. Their mortgages are now going to go up, and it's a huge increase when you think about, even though it might only be 1% or a couple of basis points in terms of what their mortgages may have gone up by. It has a huge knock-on effect. And actually, I think is going to push a lot of people over the threshold of being able to afford their mortgage or not. So this is all downside risk. How do you think Bitcoin and crypto fares in that sort of a scenario? Downside. It's very much evident to me. Energy costs are soaring, Bitcoin prices plummeting, and that's why big crypto miners are selling tokens at a discount. So this is going to become, and we spoke about this on yesterday's video, we spoke about it a couple of weeks ago, I've been keeping everybody up to date on it on the Patreon. The Bitcoin miners is going to become more and more, they're going to become almost forced sellers now, because the amount of energy that it takes to mine a Bitcoin is at that kind of break-even point and is actually getting tipped below it. Certainly if we ended up back at 17K. They have to sell to keep the lights on, whereas historically we have seen miners hodl. and try and, you know, make the most out of an uptrending market. It's now a downtrending market, therefore sellers, this is all sell pressure. You know, mining is the biggest inflation of Bitcoin, of course, and this all factors into the cryptocurrency market. So it sounds very doom and gloom. The good news here is you guys are going to get an amazing opportunity to accumulate crypto lower, in my opinion. Not interested in calling this a bottom. Even if we do see some sort of a prolonged short-term rally for the NASDAQ, it's my opinion that we interact with this 200 weekly moving average like we did going into the 2008 financial crisis, where we just sort of bounce off it, and then eventually smash through it, or the dot-com boom. You know, I think we're very much mirroring what happened in the dot-com sort of decline. That very much looks like the case, and we're seeing just how over-leveraged everybody is out there, including all these big corporations and businesses. So that's really all I've got for you in this video, guys. Not really that much of a cheery one, but we're just telling you as we see it. Ultimately, for me, the risk is still to the downside. We will be jumping back into crypto and keeping everybody up to date on that. But the time now it's really about a patience game and seeing how things unfold. And I think cash is going to be king, certainly for you know, the short to the midterm, and then we'll reassess things. You know, if we start to see volume coming back to the buy side, we start to see players getting back involved, then we'll pivot. But until we see that, until we get the sort of bottoming signs that we're after, and the RSI being extremely oversold is not it. Remember the environment that we're in. You know, RSIs, they do have a degree of accuracy. You know, you could see, for example, you had a divergence on the RSI here. That would probably have been a good indication, and then a lower print on the RSI here that, you know, to exit the market. But hindsight is always 2020. That's all we've got for you in this video, guys. If you've enjoyed the content, a like is always appreciated, so is a comment, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Thanks a lot for watching, ladies and gents.